Hello. Today I'm reading from Sources for American History, Volume 2, edited by Kevin Sheets. This reading is of Reverend Henry McNeill Turner. Despite the ratification of the 14th and 15th Amendments to the Constitution in 1868 and 70, respectively, core questions of citizenship remained in dispute for African Americans who suffered the withering and persistent racism of the area. Some African American men, like the Reverend Henry Turner, won election to state office in the post-war years, but their triumph dimmed under the ridicule and deceit they faced. In his case, the white majority in the Georgia legislature, in a blatant obstruction of the democratic process, expelled Turner from his elected office. Their vote prompted Turner's impassioned speech, where he claimed his rights under the Constitution as he read it. Mr. Speaker, before proceeding to argue this question upon its intrinsic merits, I wish the members of this House to understand the position that I take. I hold that I am a member of this body. Therefore, sir, I shall neither fawn nor cringe before any party, nor stoop to beg them for my rights. Some of my colored fellow members, in the course of their remarks, took occasion to appeal to the sympathies of the members on the opposite side, and to eulogize their character for magnanimity. It reminds me very much, sir, of slaves begging under the lash. I am here to demand my rights and to hurl thunderbolts at the men who would dare to cross the threshold of my manhood. There is an old aphorism which says, "Fight the devil with fire," and if I should observe the rule in this instance, I wish, gentlemen, to understand that it is but fighting them with their own weapon. The scene presented in this House today is one unparalleled in the history of the world. From this day, back to the day when God breathed the breath of life into Adam, no analogy for it can be found. Never in the history of this world has a man been arraigned before a body clothed with the legislative, judicial, or executive functions, charged with the offense of being a darker hue than his fellow man. I know that questions have been before the courts of this country and of other countries, involving topics not altogether dissimilar to that which is being discussed here today. But, sir, never in the history of the great nations of this world, never before has a man been arraigned, charged with an offense committed by the God of heaven himself. Cases may be found where men have been deprived of their rights for crimes and misdemeanors. But it has remained for the state of Georgia, in this very heart of the 19th century, to call a man before the bar and there charge him with an act for which he is no more responsible for than the head which he carries upon his shoulders. The Anglo-Saxon race, sir, is a most surprising one. No man has ever been more deceived in that race than I have been for the last 3 weeks. I was not aware that there was in the character of that race so much cowardice or so much pusillanimity. The treachery which has been exhibited in it by gentlemen belonging to that race has shaken my confidence in it more than anything that has come under my observation from the day of my birth. Whose legislature is this? Is it the white man's legislature? Or is it the black man's legislature? Who voted for a constitutional convention in obedience to the mandate of the Congress of the United States? Who rallied around the standard of Reconstruction? Who set the ball of loyalty rolling in the state of Georgia? And whose voice was heard in the hills and the valleys of this state? It was the voice of the brawny armed Negro, and with few humanitarian-hearted white men who came to their assistance. I claim the honor, sir, of having been the instrument of convincing hundreds, yea, thousands of white men that to reconstruct under the measures of the United States Congress was the safest and the best course for the interest of the state. great question, sir, is this: am I a man? If I am such, I claim the rights of a man. Am I not a man because I happen to be of a darker hue than the honorable gentleman around me? Let me see whether I am or not. I want to convince the House today that I am entitled to my seat here. A certain gentleman has argued that the Negro was a mere development similar to the orangutan or the chimpanzee. But it so happens that when a Negro is examined physiologically, phrenologically, and anatomically, and I may say physiognomically, he is found to be the same as persons of different color. I would like to ask any gentleman on this floor, where is the analogy? Do you find me a quadruped? Do you find me a man? Do you find 3 bones less in my back than that of a white man? Do you find fewer organs in the brain? If you know nothing of this, I do, for I have helped to dissect 50 men, black and white, and I assert that by the time you take off the mucous pigment, the color of the skin, you cannot, to save your life, distinguish between the black man and the white. Am I a man? Have I a soul to save as you have? Am I susceptible of eternal development as you are? Can I learn all the arts and sciences that you can? Has it ever been demonstrated in the history of the world? Have black men ever exhibited bravery as the white men have done? Have they ever been in the professions? Have they not as good articulative organs as you? God has weaved and tissued variety and versatility throughout the boundless confines of his creation. Because God saw fit to make some red, some white, some black, some brown, are we to sit here in judgment upon what God has seen fit to do? As well one might play with the thunderbolts of heaven as with that of the creation that bears God's image, God's photograph. It is said that Congress never gave us the right to hold office. I want to know, sir, if Reconstruction measures did not base their action on the ground that no distinction should be made on account of race, color, or previous condition. Was not that the grand fulcrum on which they rested? Did not every reconstructed state have to reconstruct on the idea that no discrimination in any sense of the term should be made? There is not a man here who will dare say no. We are a persecuted people. Luther was persecuted. Galileo was persecuted. Good men in all nations have been persecuted. But the persecutors have been handed down to posterity with shame and ignominy. If you pass this bill, you will never get Congress or pardon or enfranchise another rebel in your life. To pardon or enfranchise another. You are going to fix an everlasting disenfranchisement upon Mr. Toombs and the other leading men of Georgia. You may think you are doing yourselves honor by expelling us from this house, but when we go, we will do as Wycliffe and as Latimer did. We will light a torch of truth that will never be extinguished. The impression that will run through the country as people picture in their mind's eye these poor black men in all parts of the southern country, pleading for their rights. When you expel us, you make us forever your political foes, and you will never find a black man to vote a Democratic ticket again. For so help me God, I will go through all the length and breadth of the land, where a man of my race is to be found, and advise him to beware of the Democratic Party. Justice is the great doctrine taught in the Bible. God's eternal justice is founded upon truth, and the man who steps before justice steps from truth, and cannot make his principles to prevail. I hope that our poor downtrodden race may act well and wisely through this period of trial, and that they will exercise patience and discretion under all circumstances. You may expel us, gentlemen, by your votes today. But while you do it, remember that there is a just God in heaven, whose all-seeing eye beholds alike the acts of the oppressor and the oppressed, and who, despite the machinations of the wicked, never fails to vindicate the cause of justice and the sanctity of his own handiwork.